All right, fantastic. Pleased to be here today with Caleb Avery. He is the CEO of Tild, and we will be talking about embedded payments, entrepreneurial grit, and scaling PayFac-as-a-Service. Welcome, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. Excited.
Yeah, fantastic. So, under your leadership, Till has raised nearly 40 million, scaled, many times over, 550% year over year, and defining how kind of software companies can build revenue through embedded payments. So maybe you want to just build on that, share a little bit, about what you're doing with Till, and we can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So with Tild, we're helping vertical software companies primarily that want to leave Stripe in order to start monetizing the payments that are flowing through the platform. And so over the last 6.5 years, we've been building out this incredible technology platform. And really at the forefront of what we're doing is the API that powers that entire experience. And so for Tild, we're looking for these vertical software platforms across the US and Canada in all sorts of different verticals that are looking to replace that Stripe embedded payments experience with the Tild API and start monetizing all of those payments that are going through the platform. And the last couple of years, just seeing the growth in this category in the industry overall, we feel like we're riding a pretty incredible wave right now and just trying to keep up with all of the momentum.
So sort of Stripe is the known name, or the 1,000-pound gorilla, or whatever term you want to use. What is your approach? How does it differ? Maybe you can share a little bit more on that.
Yeah, certainly. Stripe is definitely what I consider the 800-pound gorilla in the space. They've been doing this for 10 years and largely are the de facto option for early stage vertical software companies that want 7 lines of code to get up and running quickly and embed payments within their platform. And I think when you think about the Stripe experience, it's all about developer first, and it's really a self-serve experience. And the reality is that is both the best and worst parts about the Stripe experience. And so for the two founders in a garage, they want that self-service, let's get payments up and running in a weekend type approach. But as a vertical platform really starts to scale up, they hit 50 million, 100 million, couple hundred million in payments volume. Oftentimes they're really wanting to customize that experience more than Stripe allows with their basic Stripe Connect solution. And so oftentimes where we meet these companies in their journey is that they're really wanting to customize, whether it's the branding, the payments experience, the billing model, some aspect of the payments journey. They're just hitting a wall and they're starting to evaluate Stripe Custom Connect. But the reality of looking at that Custom Connect solution is it could take you 6+ months of development work to go build out that custom solution. And for a startup, your development resources are the most precious resource that you have. And so very few companies actually want to go spend the time to build their own billing engine or build their own onboarding solution or build their own reporting solutions. And so where Tild comes in is offering a more turnkey version of that Stripe Custom Connect experience, where in a matter of minutes, you can customize your branding, you can customize your billing model, you can customize your payout preferences or your checkout experience. And so it's a very turnkey experience. And we couple that with more of a white glove support experience. And so going back to this idea that Stripe is a self-serve environment, Tild is really leaning in with a smaller number of larger customers that we can offer that white glove experience, because a lot of the platforms that end up coming to Tild are struggling with the adoption rates. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're a dental software platform that's leveraging Stripe. Oftentimes what we see is that software company may have, let's say, 1,000 merchants using the software, but they may only have 100, 150 of the customers that have actually signed up for the payments part of the offering. And when they come to us and we, start peeling back the layers of the onion, we realize, well, maybe the pricing was wrong. Maybe the messaging was wrong. Maybe the onboarding experience wasn't structured properly. Maybe the sales team needs a little bit more training. And by providing a couple of, oftentimes fairly easy, fairly light touch changes to the platform, you can have a meaningful impact on the adoption rates for that payments program. And so for us, you combine that with they're making more money on every dollar running through the platform. And then all of a sudden they're getting 3 or 4 times as many dollars running through the platform. That's a really powerful combination.
So are you, so you mentioned you're sort of meeting people at a point on their journey where maybe they have something in place, but it's not meeting their needs as their business has evolved. And so is your primary focus on kind of enabling those companies for the next stage of growth, or enabling them to just have a better experience doing what they're doing already? Or is it sort of unlocking other opportunities, or are you bringing other use cases to people that maybe they don't see already?
Yeah, I would say if I look at the history of the company and where we've been thus far, it's been more about helping them optimize what they're doing today and optimizing their existing embedded payments solution. And so for the first 6.5 years of Till, that's really been the core focus, is nailing that embedded payments experience for our vertical software platforms and allowing them to bring a better solution to market, better monetize those opportunities. But when I look at where we're headed, and the roadmap and the vision and the journey ahead in the business, we're seeing requests from a lot of our partners that are wanting to move beyond just embedded payments. So they've had success monetizing and scaling their embedded payments program, and now they're asking about embedded lending or embedded banking or embedded issuing solutions so that they can really bring to market a full suite of embedded fintech solutions. And I certainly believe that Tild is perfectly positioned to help our customers bring those next generation of solutions to market. And so that's where we're focusing a lot of our time and energy over the next couple of quarters, to bring some of those additional solutions to market so that we can really help our customers expand the product set and the revenue streams that they have available on the platform.
Got it. So, um, what about in terms of your distribution strategy? I mean, are these companies coming to you directly? I think you've mentioned previously some strategic partnerships with banks and processors. So, how's your distribution strategy work?
Yeah, so historically, we've been incredibly fortunate with the amount of inbound interest that we've gotten in the business. And so today, I think that the distribution is something like 70% inbound, 30% channel. And both sides of that are certainly growing. On the inbound side of the business, we do a lot of podcasts, thus the shameless neon sign. Behind me,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, blogs, ebooks, content is a huge part of the strategy. And what we find is that a lot of the customers and partners that come to us are really just wanting to learn more about the space. They've been with Stripe the entire time that they've been in business, and they're really wanting to learn more about, well, how does embedded payments work? What is an interchange plus pricing model? And so putting out that content has really helped us be front and center for a lot of the customers coming to Tild. And then I'd say over the last year or so, we've really started to see momentum picking up with the channel side of the strategy. And so we've always worked with agents, smaller ISOs, payments consultants that are helping vertical software companies evaluate opportunities. But over the last year or so, we've really started to see interest from some very large publicly traded players in the payment space that are finally realizing that they have to have a strategy within this vertical software company arena. And the reality that they're waking up to is the technology that they built 10 plus years ago isn't really competitive for their sales teams and their channels as they're going out and selling. And so Tild has brought to market an enterprise version of our offering where we're white labeling our technology set to processors, wholesale ISOs, banks, huge fintechs that are coming to us and oftentimes are wanting us to plug in our technology into their back end. And so we'll plug into their risk and underwriting tools, the processor of their choice for authorization, we'll plug into them for settlement. But on the front end, it's all our APIs, our onboarding solutions, our reporting consoles. And so they really get the best of both worlds, where they get that Tild Stripe-like technology experience, but they get the benefit of their buy rates, their scale, and their existing teams using a lot of their own internal solutions. And so we see huge upside potential in that enterprise strategy from a distribution model, because these publicly traded incumbents have sales teams that are slightly larger than we do as a startup, and have a
Yeah.
little bit more money to spare on the go-to-market side of the business.
Great. So just to rewind a little bit, you know, what originally made you say, this is a company I need to build? I think maybe it started in some consulting work and then you decided to productize, but what was really the aha moment there?
Yeah, so I've been in payments my entire career. I started my first payments company at 19, and so I was the crazy college kid out selling terminals to small business owners when I was in college. And over time, as I was scaling up that first company, I was seeing more and more of the small business owners that were asking me about verticalized software solutions. And so I had sold them a terminal sitting on the counter, and they're getting approached by a company that's doing payments plus payroll and invoicing and scheduling and all of these other solutions. And so I just got more and more curious about that segment of the market. And so I started doing both angel investing and consulting for these vertical software platforms. And over the years, really just saw the same problem dozens of times over, where these companies were wanting to leave Stripe, but when they actually started looking at the options available to them, they were essentially choosing between having great technology or the ability to monetize those payments. And the crazy thing to me was these guys were willing to take a huge step back on the technology that they had available in order to generate revenue on those payments. And so honestly, the journey to start the business was me reluctantly realizing that there was this massive problem. And as a consultant, I started working with some of the companies who became competitors in the space to Tild. And the approach that they were taking, if I rewind 7, 8 years ago, was wildly different than what those companies are actually outselling in the market today. And so I felt like there was this massive problem. The companies that were trying to solve this problem, I felt like weren't taking the right approach. And so we came to market, we came up with this terminology of PayFac-as-a-Service, and I think have largely shifted an entire ecosystem in the direction of this PayFac as a service model, which ultimately I think is in the best interest of all of the software platforms, because it certainly seems like this is the model that they were really searching for. Just no one knew it at the time.
So are there things going all the way back to that original business that have kind of shaped your approach to product and leadership, as you've evolved into this business, or just, technology and business models have evolved over time?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we saw in the first company, as an industry, the average churn rate is something like 15% year over year. And so a lot of these huge processors are just churning merchants left and right. 15% churn is pretty wild. I don't know how you scale a business with churn like that. And we were able to get our churn rates down to less than 2% in the business. And it was really all about focusing on the product and the service that we were offering to these customers. And so we were continually evolving the product set to make sure we had the latest terminals, the latest gift card programs, all the latest things. And then really it was all about the service that we were offering to these customers, and constantly trying to make sure that we had the best experience possible for our merchants. And so I certainly learned that merchant centric support experience building out the first company, but I also learned a lot about distribution. And so for us, in the first few years of the business, we were really more focused on the merchant side of that experience and really nailing that initial product and service for the merchants, which we had an incredibly happy base of merchants, but the business wasn't really scaling in the early days. And when we started to shift our focus towards creating the best experience possible for our agents and ISOs that were really the distribution behind the business, that's when we really started to see the company take off and doubling and tripling year over year in the business. And so for me, when I started Tild, we really took the same approach of, initially we have to go nail the product and the service and the experience, because that's the foundation that you're going to build a large business on top of. And as soon as I felt like we were reaching that product market fit with what we had built out, for me, I became laser focused on building out this distribution model, which for me, a lot of where I wanted to go was this enterprise model in the business, because I felt like it was hyper scalable with a lot less resources than if we were scaling up a direct sales team. And in this current capital environment, trying to be as efficient as you can in your go-to-market motion is incredibly necessary.
Yeah. So actually, just to pick up on that point, in enterprise sales cycles tend to be longer, et cetera. So um, can you just maybe talk strategically a little bit more about how you thought about that go-to-market strategy and managing your cash burn and all those sort of things?
Yeah, so initially we did not start with the enterprise sales strategy at Tild for all of the reasons that you just
Yep.
mentioned, plus the fact that the product just flat out wasn't ready for enterprise in the early days. And so initially we were founder-led sales going out directly to ISVs, and so I was Tild, advertising on LinkedIn, talking to customers, signing deals, the whole process. And then we started to actually build the sales team on the direct to ISV side of the business. And it wasn't until we really had a scalable solution on that direct to ISV side of the business that I was even thinking about moving over to this enterprise model. And then the way that I built up that enterprise strategy was really the same process that I took on the direct to ISV side, where I started as the sales rep. Because the reality was we had no idea how to price it. We didn't know what the contract should look like. We weren't even, frankly, quite sure what the product offering was that we were selling to these guys, but I knew this was the market segment that I wanted to go into. And so it was a lot of discovery work on my end, going out and talking to a lot of the contacts of a CRO or a chief payments officer or CEO of these big publicly traded companies that I had built relationships with over the last 10, 12 years, and just getting feedback from them. Hey, what would be interesting to you? What problems are you guys facing? How would we need to build out this product set? And so it wasn't me just coming in guns blazing with, hey, I've got this amazing product that I'm going to sell. It was really me coming in with a curious mindset, asking questions, trying to understand, is there really a market need in this segment of the market? And immediately the answer was absolutely. These guys were unequivocally excited about the idea of partnering with Tild. And so over the period of about a year, I figured out what felt like the right pricing structure, what felt like the right contract structure, what felt like the right product. And, we've now signed, I think, 6 of these, multi-year significant enterprise contracts. And so it's starting to feel like a more repeatable model. We're bringing in our CRO, who's starting to sign some of these enterprise deals on his own. But it really started as that founder-led sales, curiosity, question-oriented discovery process to figure out if there was really an opportunity there.
So, that's obviously sort of an evolution in the business, and evolution in your distribution strategy, et cetera. And so whether it's in that arena or other areas of the business, is there, a particular leadership decision as you've gone through multiple inflection points in the business, a particular leadership decision you made under pressure that really helped you level up as a leader?
Yeah, I would say the decision to go after this enterprise strategy was reasonably controversial with the team, with the board, with some of our investors, because we were at a really critical point in the business where cash was tight, growth was pretty good, but it wasn't exactly, where we thought it was going to be. And I felt like we were really right on the verge of this like product market fit within the core business. And so for me, I felt like we didn't have a choice other than to start focusing on the distribution side of the business. But that was not a universally agreed upon point of view. And ultimately, my point of view was, if this works, it's all on me. And if this fails, it's all on me. And so this is a
Mm-hmm.
decision that I ultimately have to live with the consequences of this decision. And I was absolutely unequivocal that this was the direction that I felt like the business needed to go in. And probably about that was, I don't know, less than 2 years ago. And within 6 months of making that decision, we started to hit this inflection point of the hockey stick type growth within the core business segment. And all of a sudden, the decision that I had made, whatever 6 months prior, started to look like a great decision, because we had that product market fit with the core offering. We were hitting that hockey stick growth, as you said, 550% plus year over year growth. And now all of a sudden we've got these enterprise partners that are starting to scale up their businesses as well. And so I think it's positioning us for that next stage of growth. But it was certainly something that I needed to rally the board, rally the team, and get folks excited, because it was a big change to the vision and the direction that the company was going. And for me, it had been something that I had been thinking about for years. So this was always where I wanted to go with the business. But the reality was I had to wait for the right time where we had the right product, enough cash in the bank, and we were at the right point in the growth journey to take that decision. But I think the hard part about product market fit is everyone has their own definition of what it looks like. And I think, having done this a couple of times, the founder is the one closest to the action, to really be able to feel when you feel the tide changing in the business. And I just felt like we were right on the verge of that happening, and we had to go take a chance.
So in terms of enabling you to work on the sort of founder-led sales aspects, and then think about some of this product strategy or overall business strategy, how did you assemble kind of the resources around you in terms of leadership team or board, investors, other stakeholders, number one? And number two, as the business continues to evolve, grows into the enterprise side, et cetera, how do you sort of think about what the future of those supporting resources or fellow team members needs to look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, the reality is there's absolutely no way I could have done what I've done over the last 18 months without having the right people and the right structure around me. And so we did make a couple of changes on the board, brought in some key advisors, brought in some key members on the leadership team. And so the decision to go pursue enterprise had a lot of associated changes that had to happen to realize that vision. And so for me, one of the things that I did was bringing in an advisor that had experience working with several of the companies that we were looking to target with this enterprise solution. And so bringing on a senior executive from several of these big public companies that had that experience, understood how they thought about this, understood how they navigated these long sales cycles, and how they bought products like Tilled, was incredibly helpful for me, both in opening some doors, but also just being a sounding board for, hey, here's the conversation that I had with the CRO at such and such company. How should I approach this sales process? And so that was incredibly valuable for me. And then thing two was bringing on a CRO that could really take over and own the sales process for that direct ISV side of the business. And so I didn't want to be straddling two fences of trying to help manage the sales team on the direct ISV side of the business while also trying to go launch a new product set. And so that was a really critical hire for me to really be able to go a bit more hands off with that direct ISV side of the experience, and say, hey, we've got several capable leaders that are going to own this experience and allow me to really focus in my time and energy on this new side of the business. And then we also brought in a new board member that has been an investor for quite a while, but was, I think, really critical at this key juncture, helping me navigate a lot of the changes and the noise going on in and around the business.
And when you think about, either your industry, your business in particular, kind of, I didn't spring the AI question on you, but the way AI is transforming businesses and the type of talent necessary to be able to operate in kind of a new emerging world, what do you think about in terms of the talent you're looking sort of more broadly to bring into the organization, or where do you see potential challenges in finding the right fit going forward?
Yeah, I would say certainly over the last year, we've changed a lot, both in terms of internally how we approach using AI across every segment of the business. And then it's really changed the way that we thought about how we want to grow the team going forward. And so internally, every person at Tild is using AI in some capacity, whether that's developers helping them augment the code that they're writing, whether that's marketing, putting together content, whether that's support from a chatbot perspective. And so we're leveraging AI across the entire business to make the entire team more efficient. And that's allowed us to scale pretty incredibly over the last year without really needing to add almost any headcount on to the team. And so for us, we're not looking at it as, hey, this is going and replacing these 5 jobs. It's more, how do we make every person at Tild more efficient in what they're already doing day to day? And so on a go forward basis, that means we should be able to hit our revenue targets this year and probably hire half the amount of people that we were otherwise, thinking that we would need to go higher, which for us just means we're more cash efficient, more interesting to investors, and ultimately generating more cash in the business over time. And so it's been a huge benefit for our business over the last year or so, especially as we've been in this hyper growth mode, to really figure out how do we find a smaller number of A players that are really excited about how AI can help augment their day to day and just make them more efficient at their job.
So if you're to look 3 years out and everything goes according to plan, sort of, what does success look like in terms of the product, in terms of the culture in the business, and just the overall impact you're having in your role?
Yeah, I would say 3 years from now, we certainly want to have moved beyond just embedded payments. And so success to me means that we're able to help vertical software platforms as well as our enterprise partners come to market with a wide array of embedded fintech solutions. And so to me, if we can realize that product vision over the next 3 years, I'll be incredibly excited. And then as far as the impact, I think the size and scale of some of these partnerships, some of which are public, some of which are not, have the capacity to change the entire course of the industry that we're operating in right now. And so we're unbelievably excited to play a small role as a technology provider to some of these monster incumbents, because we're already seeing this shift from the traditional ISO agent direct merchant sales model towards this verticalized software model. And the growth just since COVID has been staggering. And I believe that the curve is only going to continue to accelerate. And so if we can play a small role in continuing to change the shape of that growth curve, that's incredibly exciting to me.
Great. Caleb, anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Yeah, if there's anyone that's interested in either partnering with Tild or coming along on the journey, tild.com is a phenomenal place to learn more about the business, see the open roles that we're hiring for. And then if anyone's interested in following along on the journey, LinkedIn is a great place to learn more about Tild. I will say that you'll have to follow along a little bit on my golf journey and sometimes what I'm doing with the kids on the weekend. But if you're okay with that, follow me on LinkedIn and follow along on the journey.
All right, great. Well, Caleb Avery, founder and CEO of Tild, thanks so much for joining me on the